Hey bestie, and welcome to a very special episode of the Plobcast. I do apologize in advance for my regular listeners because we have a very special guest, Lily Tino's former friend, who turns out Lily Tino's a lot bigger plob and has been in a lot more communities than I realized. I want to say I'm shocked, but also I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan, so seeing somebody that's super into Disney be involved in video games and like other fandoms and stuff is not really a big shocker at the same time. But I do apologize. We are going to have a little bit more. It's going to be a couple minutes of intro just because there's some disclaimers that we need to go over real quick because there are going to be people tuning in just for this podcast that are not used to the podcast. So just a reminder that this podcast is not for little ears, and I do truly mean that. I know there are a lot of people who, you know, when I say this podcast is not for little ears, they think, oh, it's fine. You know, it can't be that bad. I'm not monetized on here in any way. I am not monetized on the podcast in any way. I'm not monetized on Tube. I'm not, none of that. TikTok is the only place that I am monetized. So like everywhere that this is going, I am not monetized. And that means I can say whatever the fuck I feel. I can be very brutally honest. I'm not going to be censoring anything. I will not be censoring anything that... We're going to call him John Doe for privacy. If you've not seen a video, I have a whole video explaining, and he's going to get into some of this too, of Lily Tino's fans attacking him and getting him fired at one point, which is why we're going to be calling him John Doe. And I am also going to be putting a special voice thingy over his voice so that it does not sound like his voice. I also apologize if you're hearing random dinging in the background. That was him texting me because I am going to record this intro first to make sure all of the disclosures are in it and all of that's put in there properly, and then I'm going to hop into the call with him. I'm also going to apologize if there are like, you know, a couple extra seconds of silence between speaking to make sure that we are actually going to be doing a video chat and to make sure that I'm not showing, or I'm not like accidentally leaking his voice in any way. We have decided to do like a hand signal on video so we can say like, hey, we're done talking before the other person speaks. That way I don't have to worry about his voice getting leaked in any way, and I can make sure all of his voice is completely censored. So as always, I don't have fancy editing software. I don't know anything about editing. You know, I had to have people come out and help me, and I am really grateful for those who are helping me this week with this stuff. And I have a lot of large creator friends who, you know, were always offering to help me if I ever get fancy software, but I donate all of my proceeds from TikTok to the domestic violence shelter. If you're unaware and you haven't seen, I literally go live and show me donating it too. Every month, you know, that like 5-minute live I do just showing like me receiving it on the 15th and, you know, donating it and all that stuff. So I don't know. Like, I can't bring myself to take away from that money to, like, get fancy editing software. I do have a day job in mental health, so at some point, you know, maybe Black Friday or something, I'll get some fancy software. But as for now, I don't have any of that, so I am super grateful for all of the people who reached out and, like, showed me, like, ways to, you know, censor his voice and everything this week for this, and how to, like, put everything together and stuff. I also want to thank the lawyer's office who called me. Well, actually, they initially reached out to me on TikTok, and then they were like, hey, just to prove we are, like, actually who we say are, here's our lawyer legal office. Please call it. They wanted to discuss with me. I called this lawyer's office. They are out in Minnesota, like a random place to be contacting me from. But they said, hey, well, just a few things that you should, like, be prepared for with this. There's a few ways that, like, Lily Tino could possibly, like, try to get this guy's identity, even though he does have, like, receipts for what is being said. So, just a disclosure, this is for entertainment and educational purposes only and is all alleged. We are also going to go over some story times that have been told to me, and I'm going to call them story times, but, that some alleged things that Lily Tino has done to over a dozen other people, because there was a few people who came in my comments and they were like, you know, aren't you worried that just by saying that this is somebody that Lily Tino fans have gotten fired in the past that they're going to be able to figure out who this is? The reason I am not worried about that is because over a dozen other people have reached out to me with their fucking similar experiences. So John is not, you know, as we're calling him John, he is not the only person, and nowhere near. And I'm going to read off those stories for those who have given me permission to read them off that have DM'd me about their experiences. Because, fun fact, if you didn't know, Lily Tino's fans do have a habit that, this is something Lily Tino doesn't like to talk about, but she does have a habit of having fans go after people and get them fired and stuff if they're rude on the internet, and like telling them and shit, and being like, oh, I would never, on live, she'll be like, I would never do that, I only get like waiters and waitresses fired and shit. No, you have a long history of fucking getting, people to go, like your fans to go after people. Oh, and just a quick disclosure, for those who have sent me messages and telling me, threaten me not to do this, you can suck my fucking cake pops, as you like to fucking call them. You will not, buddy, I don't know who the fuck, I don't know, I apologize for anybody who told you that I give a fuck, but the fact that so many of you fans of Lily Tino came in my fucking DMs and are trying to threaten me and blah, 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 and trying to make shit up about me and stuff. First of all, I've had a fucking hate group for over a year that I know for a fucking fact is listening to this. It's a bunch of fucking pedophile supporters, including dating people that are on the fucking registry, that like to crop my videos and fucking make up shit about me because I outed another predator. Baby, I'll go fucking head to head again. They didn't get rid of me, and you're not gonna fucking get rid of me either. I am so sick of these fucking pedophile supporters or predator supporters trying to fucking do anything to fucking protect their own fucking, fellow predators and shit, by trying to, silence people who have experienced these things and have gone through these things. If you have a complaint about me doing this interview, I'm going to tell you right now, you can contact the United States Army, because they took any fucks I had left to fucking give. And if you don't want to contact the United States Army, you can go to your local sex store and get a fucking Clone-A-Willy, and you can write down on a little piece of paper, crumble that up, put it into the Clone-A-Willy, and fuck yourself with it. I have absolutely no tolerance for people like this for multiple reasons, especially as somebody who is a part of the same community as Lily Tino, to see her do so much fucking damage on top of being a predator and everything else, to be doing so much fucking damage to the community. And if you don't know, Lily Tino's videos have literally been used by politicians in Florida when they were passing certain anti-trans bills and anti-queer bills, to persuade votes. So, Lily Tino has done real fucking damage. Like, I've talked about Christiane and other problematic people before, but Lily Tino has done some of the most damage to the trans community and to the queer community in general. So I have no fucking tolerance. A few years ago, I actually got to speak to the House of Representatives about, passing bills that would help, rights for people in the queer community and the trans community. And, all of that constantly gets undone by people like Lily Tino. So there is no tolerance for that. You will not, harass or bully or threaten me into, baby, I don't give a fuck about your goddamn hurt feelings, because you worship Lily Tino. I will not be backing down, because if you have not seen, Lily Tino's cousin actually did a fucking interview, and that is how we got to this point. I'm going to let John kind of explain how we got to this point if you haven't seen the videos, but, Lily Tino's cousin did an interview, and it made Lily Tino, pushed her into taking a hiatus. I mean, she's not on a hiatus on spicy stuff, but a hiatus on other social media, and she's saying that it's not a permanent hiatus. So I'm hoping by other people getting to share their stories, like personal stories with Lily Tino, they will push that over the edge. Like, that will make her make this permanent, and she will permanently leave the fucking internet. I do apologize. This is an 8-minute intro. I've never done an 8-minute intro before, but I needed to make sure all of that was clear before we got into this. We're going to jump right in with John. I know, typically in interviews on podcasts, you're supposed to, be like, introduce yourself, but obviously, he can't really do that. So, wherever he wants to start, here in a second, you're going to hear him just talking, because I'm just going to add that in, because I don't know where he wants to start. So let me hop into this call, and you'll find out in 2 seconds.
Hello. I don't know where to start either. I guess I will just start with how I met in the community, how I connected with Lily. They were known as Nick at the time, but how I initially connected with them and met them. I do want to say that I don't have these beliefs or are a part of these communities anymore. I will admit that when I was younger, I was in a really dark place, and I fell down into the incel community, and I found a home there, and it definitely gave me some very dark beliefs that I am not proud of. I am very ashamed of who I was when I was younger and the things that I believed in and the communities I was a part of, but that is not who I am anymore. But I'm also not going to sit here and lie and pretend I was this perfect person and that I was just a bystander. I was active in these groups. It's how I encountered Lily, how I encountered Lily in the first place. I did, as you've already told people, um, I had this bad interaction with their fans whenever I first tried to speak up, because when I saw they disconnected from everybody that was in those groups and disconnected from those groups when they started transitioning into Lily, when she started to become Lily and make the transition content. And because of her past behaviors, especially in those groups, I was really concerned, and I tried to tell people, I tried to speak out, and I was attacked. I'm not the only person. There are probably over 50 people that have had these experiences. I've seen the messages that Ribbon shared with me, but I've also seen my own over this time period. I'm trying to be very careful with information for my own privacy, but over the time period that this happened, I have had other people come forward. I've even seen um, it from other people who were part of these groups talk about being done the same thing and showing their experiences, because I just want to say that if you are a part of these incel communities and these hateful communities, especially because it's a lot of young men who are just lonely and hurting and in a dark place, please seek help like I did. I'm very ashamed of the things that I went through, but I also like to talk about it, to remind people that you can change and you can get help in those places. Might feel at home at the time, but you don't want to become, well, like Lily Tino has become, like Lily. Nick was part of these, and now we're seeing the kind of person that she is become. And some of the extremists and the young men who turn into, well, monsters. But I and many other men are proof that you can get out of that and get help. Like, please do not be afraid to speak out if you're a part of those communities. As I've said, I'm very ashamed of ever being part of them, but I'm also, it's something I don't shy away from talking about, because I want other men to know, and especially the young boys who are in these horrible incel communities, and, or as Ribbon calls them, plob communities, and doing these behaviors and hating women and saying these horrible things, and all of this nastiness and grotesque and sickening stuff. Please get help.
I'm just going to hop in here real quick for a second while John takes a break. Also, if it's a weird pause and I'm just randomly popping in, it's because I want to give John as much time as he needs to compose himself and, really, we're going to get into some dark communities. We're going to get into some dark communities. As he said, I wanted to pop in, though, while he's taking that break and remind everybody that if you are a part of this, which I doubt, the only people that are part of those communities that typically listen are the ones that are, like, wanting to hate on me, and, like, they call me femoid, and what was the other one, Stacy, and sub 5 or whatever crap. I've had people be like, I'm gonna put you in a BP edit. I've had people put me in those edits, and they always find like the worst picture of me, and I don't fucking care. I do care though about people getting help that they need. Please don't feel like, as John said, you can get help. There are other communities, not just these hateful, horrible communities that do these just horrible, graphic things. I don't even know what to call it. As he said, I think he called it nasty. Yeah, he's nodding. Yeah, the nasty, just horrific communities. If you're not familiar with my content, I have had several former incels come forward and be like, hey, you can get help. This is what changed my mind. This is what opened my eyes up. You're talking about all the different things that made them finally realize. And yes, there is a male loneliness epidemic. I posted things in June, both for Pride and for men's mental health. I have to mention both, because if I don't mention both, people are like, oh, you're only talking about one. I talk about both. I also talked about PTSD awareness, because it's also PTSD awareness month in June. But there are places out there, there are communities. I know with depression and male loneliness epidemic and those things, a lot of these young men do fall down this very dark path, and it's really sad. My page talks about plobs, but it also talks about flobs, and there's several other people. I've talked about this many times before, how people like Wizard on a t-shirt and Splooge and stuff who make fun of guys like this, talking about, well, they don't make fun of the men in general, it's the actions they're making fun of, like certain actions within the gaming community and different fandoms. They never get the comments of, you're not talking about women too, but on my page, even though I actually talk about women in these communities more than like other creators, and that's not to me to dog on them. I love them. I love all of those creators out there. I am mutuals with a lot of them and other ones I follow. But despite the fact that I talk more about both sides of the stories, and majority of my story times from plobs, my follower submissions come from men a lot of times, like other men in the fandom who are like, we want these plobs out of the fandom, we want this behavior corrected, it's disgusting. I always get these comments from the incels who will be like, oh, you're only talking about men, and I'm like, what about, and they'll be like, what about the women too? And I'm like, I talk about both. I even have a name for them, flobs instead of plobs. Like, there's the male plobs and there's female plobs. Sorry, flobs. And I, always get those comments. People being like, oh, what about the women too? And I've noticed it's only on the videos talking about men. When I talk about women, I never get any comments being like, oh, what about the men too? But on the male ones, I always get, that comment, what about females do this stuff too? Yeah, I talk about that. Do you think it's ironic because I outed a word a couple months ago, and this video is going viral, I guess, on one particular side, and it's the incel side, of me talking about code words that incels will use, and somebody being like, oh, that means you're a femcel, you probably never get... Bitch, not only I've been married for almost 11 years, it'll be 11 years next month, I teach kink education. I'm part of the E&M and the ethical kink, I teach kink safety classes on the side at events a couple times a year. I used to do it more often, but I'm down because of my day job. I only have time to do it a couple times a year. I've done Dami work in the past. How do you think I paid for my education? Because the Army only pays for so much, by the way. I did have scholarships for other, but people are like, how did you forward all these degrees? That's one of the ways I did, was Dami stuff. I've showed videos of where I joined that dating app to help a friend find out if her ex-fiance was cheating. He was, by the way. And within less than 48 hours, I had over 2,000 messages within a 100-mile radius of, even though I put no hookups and all that stuff because I was just trying to find this dude. Yeah, because you can pay to message people on there even if you haven't matched. But yeah, okay, he is waving me, so that means he is good to go. So let's get back to him. Just real quick, just like I said, if you are a part of these communities, please seek out help. You don't have to end up like people like Lily Tino or the people who do horrific things because they are so far down this, or even end up taking their own lives. Please do not feel like you can't change, that you can't get better. I know it can be really lonely. A lot of these people, I work in mental health. For HIPAA reasons, I can't go too deep into that, but I see people can change. People can get help. It can feel like you're completely alone, but there are resources out there.
Thank you for understanding that I needed a break. I'm sorry to the people listening. I know Ribbit is telling me it's fine to need breaks, but I'm sorry to those who are listening. I understand. I've been on the online community for a long time. I've seen people say things like, get to the point, or you're taking too long, but it's just super aggravating knowing... I'm trying to find the best way to describe this, but I truly believe, because of these communities that we were part of and Lily's actions when they went by Nick and were still going as Nick, their actions in these communities very much imply that they are not making this transition content out of actually caring about the community, but they are doing it as a way to get back at women, especially trans women, because of them having experiences with trans women in the past that were bad, that they have talked about in these groups. It's one of the reasons why this is something me and other people who were part of these communities have believed in for a very long time after seeing the things that Lily said when she was Nick, and I do want to apologize if I ever accidentally misgender her in this. I understand. I've seen the videos, and my friend who is actually a trans woman, she came out a little while ago, and she has been super amazing at educating me on these topics and the importance of why we need to still say she and say Lily and not disrespect the trans community, because Lily is a bad person, and not bad because she's trans, but she is a bad person just happens to be trans. But I strongly believe, after interacting, and many of us do, that Lily is doing this out of spite, making this content out of spite towards women and towards trans women in particular, and it's very aggravating to me. I will be honest, I never had a trans friend until the friend that just came out not too long ago, came out a while back. She's amazing. She is, I believe the term is doll. I think I'm using that right. But she has explained to me the struggles and things, and I had never had a trans friend prior to this. So as I've said, I did say some horrible things when I was part of these groups that I regret and I would never say nowadays, but I'm not going to shy away and pretend like I didn't say some very harmful things in the past when I was a part of these groups. But if I, at any point, accidentally, because Lily went by Nick at this time, say Nick or call him by accident, I apologize. I honestly am not trying to do that on purpose, and I don't want to promote any hate towards that community. I feel like Lily is doing enough hate towards that community with their actions, with her actions, which is where I believe all of this started. Lily was in one of these incel groups with it was an incel group with Disney fans, like a lot of Disney fans. I am a Disney fan myself. That I don't want to give any more information on that, just to make sure privacy. But in this group, someone had made a post about their experience with a trans woman who was a Disney princess. I think the woman did like those birthday party things, and in that moment, Lily made a comment under that post because the man who had posted about that was saying some horrific things about how they were really upset that they found out that the Disney princess was actually a trans woman because the guy had thought that she was a born woman. Sorry, I had to look up the term, a cis woman. He thought that she was a cis woman and had found out that she was a trans woman and was very upset and made a post about it. And Lily had gotten into the comments under their account and was talking about how they had a experience. I'm sorry, I don't want to repeat the things that Lily said because they are horrible, but Lily had said that they had an experience with a trans woman they had been seeing in the past, and they had said some very hateful things about her. And a very common, just to let you guys know a little bit about these groups, is there's like a very common theme, I guess you would call it, a very common theme in these groups where we would talk about revenge and exes that we wanted to get revenge on, and women who had done us wrong. And this was one of the ones that Lily had said that she wanted to get revenge on, which is one of the things that makes me really believe she's doing this out of spite. It was not just one comment either or one time. This was the first event that I saw her bring up this particular woman. In the comment, she says some very hateful slurs and refers to this woman as a man. She talked about how she felt deceived and how it was just I really don't want to repeat the words.
I'm going to step in for John real quick because I understand he does not want to repeat the things that are in this screenshot. He has sent it over to me. It's one of the many that he has scanned over, and I am going to do a TDLR of it, a short version, as somebody who is a part of this community and has these slurs have been used against me. I get to say them, so I'm going to. And I am not saying them against anybody, but it is important to talk about these words and say them out loud to get into people's head how bad they are, because I feel like when we bleep stuff and we're forced to bleep stuff on social media a lot, it takes away from how serious these things really are. It's kind of like when you're talking about a school shooting and you have to say school unaliving or a pew pew. It takes away, but you also can't talk about it a lot of times if you don't censor it on social media. So in this post, as John said, somebody had posted about a Disney princess performer that ended up being a trans woman, and this incel was super upset about that. And on I'm calling it the Nick account. I'm not calling Lily Tino Nick. This is when they went by Nick's, and this is the account they had when they went by Nick. So this is from the Nick account. It's actually a few paragraphs, but to shorten it up, they are calling this woman they apparently were with for a while. They're calling her a transvestite, calling her a tranny, saying that they were deceived and tricked, and how it is not fair that these men can dress up as trannies. Which, first of all, what the oh my god. But dress up as these trannies and trick men into thinking that they're really women. Lily uses a lot of hateful terms and slang in this particular post about how they want to get revenge because they feel like they were tricked into sleeping with a tranny. And that is what she is calling this entire post, along with several other slurs. They also at one point call this trans woman a faggot, which is a word I really don't fucking like. On top, like, the tranny stuff is really bad, that the faggot stuff always personally bothers me even more because I have, I've dealt with being called a tranny and stuff like that because I was born intersex, and because of going on hormones and everything. But I dealt with being called a faggot for way longer because I'm from a small town and I was out about liking women as a child. And I say child, I was like 12, 13, but that's still a child. I was very out. I never tried to hide it. And that is a word that is used, even though technically it's supposed to be against gay men, it is often used against lesbians and bisexuals a lot too. But to quote what was in this message, it says, "I don't understand why you can't just be a faggot. Why do you need to pretend to be a woman too and trick men into sleeping with you?" And that is a direct quote from this particular screenshot. There is, in the ending part, there's like 3 separate slurs that are being used, talking about how Lily wanted revenge on this ex. I also want to thank John for being respectful as a straight man, not wanting to say these words, because sadly there are some people who will take advantage of Lily Tino being a bad person and be like, oh yeah, this is the perfect time for me to get away with saying slurs. No, it's not. If you are not a part of the community that those slurs are used against, you don't get to say them. Okay, for example, if you're not black, you don't get to say the N-word. As people who are a part of a community, one of the reasons we use them is to take them back. For example, twink is used quite a bit as a bad slur word towards gay men, but also a lot of gay men will call themselves twinks to take that back. It's become a very common thing within the community. So I do appreciate John being respectful and not trying to take this as an excuse to use those words and read off that.
Thank you for helping with that, because I do understand it is important to stress how bad the things that were being said were, but I also did not feel comfortable repeating those hateful things that were said by Lily. I also want to reiterate that this was just my first encounter with seeing that account that Lily had saying these things, but a few days later, I admit, and I've sent Ruben the pictures of this, I said some things because this was a direct conversation I had with Lily, but somebody else in that community, in that group, had posted a few days later about the things they were doing to get revenge on an ex-girlfriend who they felt did not love them and had lied to them about loving them because they were now dating somebody much more physically attractive than the OP, the poster themselves. And Lily once again comes into the comments, and Lily is commenting about how they have had similar experiences and they have similar exes to this person, and they say, including the T word, the hateful T word, they refer to them as including that person they had mentioned a few days ago, referring to the trans woman again, but not calling her trans, calling her that hateful slur. They also call her ex-boyfriend, trying to mock and say, that trans woman's really a man, which is not true. From everything I saw Lily post about this person, it is a trans woman, and Lily was just being hateful. As you said, it's kind of ironic. She has these freakouts if someone messes up and accidentally misgenders her, but then she was doing these things. It's so annoying to see how hypocritical she is now. In that comment, the reason I chose to interact with Lily in that moment is she also says if you need anybody to talk to reach out, and she says that her messages are always open for anybody that needs to vent or rant or needs anybody to talk to that has had similar experiences to her. And while I had never dated a trans woman and I didn't know any trans people at this time, I did have some exes that I felt didn't love me because they had dated more attractive people after me. I'm embarrassed and ashamed of how I thought back then, but I just want to be honest. That's where my mind was in that moment. That is why I responded to Lily's comment. And my comment, to sum up what I said back to her, was yeah, I had exes similar to. I did call my exes bad names. I called my ex a raging cunt, which I don't feel that way about her anymore. I was an asshole. I was a dirtbag. I did not deserve for her to be as nice as she was about the crap I put her through. I'm just being honest about what I said in that moment. And Lily responds to me talking about how all of her exes are cunts and how most women are just like our exes together. We're talking about them together back and forth, and she is going in depth about how a lot of women are like that, and a lot of women are just completely self-centered and only care about looks, which just isn't, I know now, is not true. I'll admit in the moment I was agreeing with her. We sent messages back and forth in this comment section about our experiences and how we both felt the same about how women were shallow and only cared about looks, and they lied if they said they didn't care about looks, and if they said that they liked men who weren't conventionally attractive, which I now know is wrong and incorrect information, but in that time I did believe it, and Lily was agreeing with everything and taking things a step farther, which is what ended up leading to this friendship with her. This is the conversation that made me feel like she understood me. It made me feel like we had a lot of the same beliefs, and she was taking this conversation further and further, which I know is now a manipulation technique that people like her will do, that predators also do. They do this to make you feel more comfortable and test the waters by saying things a step further and further to make you feel like you can be your true self with them and you could be comfortable with them. And that's what Lily was doing in that moment. She was agreeing with everything I said, but also adding extra stuff and taking it a step further every single time. And I just felt like, oh wow, if she believes all of this stuff and I have similar beliefs, then she's somebody I can trust to have these conversations with, which I honestly should have. No one should ever have those beliefs. I know that now, but in that moment, I just felt like I could really connect with her, and that's where the beginning of our friendship started, our online friendship. Because after that, I did end up messaging her privately.
Step back in again while John takes a break before we dive into the actual friendship. I want to thank him for getting through all of that and going into as much detail as he could without saying the slurs and shitty fucking terms that this bitch was. Sorry, hold on, let me step back for a second now. But his, talking about, sorry, I had to take a moment because I was about to say some things and I don't want to take up your time just ranting. But now that we've established how this all started, I want to say when I was reading these, I did send some videos from different people in the psychology field who talk about this particular manipulation technique and talk about how, because I was reading the messages when he first sent them to me, and I was like, yeah, so this is a very common manipulation technique, well known. I think even Chris Hansen has like a freaking session. He talks about that particular type of manipulation that predators will do. Predators of all kinds, not just like sexual predators, but predators in general, like bad, shitty fucking people will do this particular manipulation technique where they will step it up every single time. They step it up and they test those waters, as John called it, testing the waters and stuff. They do this crap so that they can get people to feel comfortable, because a lot of times people feel like, well, if they're saying something even crazier than I am, then they're safe to say my craziest stuff around, and they do that to get this trust and make you trust them, so that you can get into those private messages, which is literally what I'm looking at it. That's literally what freaking happened here. Lily is doing this. And they also sent some screenshots of Lily doing this with other people in this group. And if any of those other people ever want to speak out and talk about that, and talk about what happened in the DMs, because that's what we're about to get into, about the conversations they were having in their DMs after this, then they are welcome to do this too. Like, if they want to come on here, just let me know. I want to give anybody who wants to have that opportunity to have a platform to have it. But yes, this is a very common manipulation technique used by predators to prey on people. They will, be stepping up every message, just say something slightly crazier or slightly more obscure to make people feel comfortable. Like, oh, their beliefs are crazier than mine, or they're more extreme than me. So like, I can't be judged by them and all that shit. I'm gonna go grab a drink real quick while John is still taking a break, and then we are going to jump right into how that personal friendship started to have. Well, I guess we've technically now explained how it happened, but we're gonna jump into everything he wants to talk about with their private messages and how that friendship played out. If you're listening to this and you were getting stressed out and frustrated, I do want to remind you to, unlock your jaw, detense, take a second to breathe. I know it is very fucking frustrating and very, what did he call it? Annoying. It's very fucking stressful knowing. I mean, I feel like maybe I'm just a little bit more stressed too, just knowing like what we're about to talk about and how it keeps getting worse, But just a reminder throughout this, if you are getting stressed and pissed off by this, don't be afraid to take breaks. Take a deep breath, unclench your jaw, unclench your fist, whatever. Don't, damage your body or anything. Lily Tino is not worth it. Take breaks if you need to.
After this conversation is when I DM'd Lily. I apologize. I almost said the wrong name. I apologize again. I'm sorry. I keep remembering when I read these messages and I think back on it, how Lily went by Nick, and I keep almost accidentally saying Nick. I don't mean to. It is not disrespectful towards the trans community again. But Lily, in these messages, I felt comfortable after those comments and DM'd her, as she had invited me to do. And I'm gonna sum up part of this just because it was so... She was like a broken record. Every conversation we had... I'm so ashamed to look back at this, but every conversation we had, she would somehow make it about hating women and women she had had interactions with, and how even when I tried to have a normal conversation and going back and like reading my messages, she's now deleted this account, but I still have the messages themselves because it just shows like the account has been deleted, but our DMs are still there. I was lucky that she had not deleted this when she first started the Lily Tino account and started making content around that, so I was able to still get those screenshots of her comments too. But after DMing her, our friendship just revolved around her hate and blame on women for why she was an incel and why she was alone, and how women were the cause of all of her issues. There was so many times where I would try to just talk about our shared love for Disney, and she would turn it into her ranting about the X's and how feminism had made it so women were no longer how they should be, as she called it. There were so many times, as this is why I ended the friendship, was because of how far she would take it. Even at my darkest time, deepest in the incel community, I never got as far as she did with the hate, which is why I'm going to sum some of this stuff up, because there were so many times it was just the same thing over and over again with her ranting. We started this conversation initially in the private messaging about our exes and how we felt very unloved and unwanted because of traditional beauty standards. But Lily was so obsessed with wanting a woman that was like a Disney princess, and I've actually seen some people, and I have a partner who has talked about this standard with women of men wanting a Disney princess, but not wanting to be a Disney prince. I apologize too if I mix any of these princesses up. That's not the side of Disney I'm a fan of. I'm a Mickey Mouse fan. Not I want to be clear that I'm not one of those Mickey Mouse fans that's super obsessed or anything. I like to go once a year with my partner. I like the old cartoons. That is something that I wanted to share with friends online, and I would bring up to Lily how I really liked the old cartoons. And every time I would bring up liking the older black and white Mickey Mouse cartoons, she would turn it into how feminism had destroyed good women and how these women in the old Disney princesses, she'd bring up people like Snow White and Aurora. I think Aurora is Sleeping Beauty if I remember correctly, but she would bring up Snow White and Aurora a lot about how they were prime examples of the perfect traditional woman and how back when those movies were being made, women acted that way and appreciated men for their hard work, even and would talk about how Snow White was always keeping the house clean and how these women knew their place, but how modern feminism had now destroyed all of that, and that was why she was struggling so hard to find a woman because even Disney fans didn't respect her her beliefs of how a woman should be. She idolized Disney princesses so much. I think that would be the right word, idolized. Honestly, it seemed more obsession. It was an obsession, to be honest. I don't want to sugarcoat it. She idolized these Disney princesses and constantly, with her obsession with them, wanted a woman like that. And I feel strongly with the way she spoke about her interactions with Disney is the reason she was even in this Disney fandom was because she strongly believed she would talk about how she would purposely go out on dates and be in these groups with Disney fans because she believed that if women were into Disney, they would probably have these same traditional views and be want to be traditional women and take care of their men and things. And how frustrated she would constantly rant about how frustrated she was and how pissed she was that these women, which she did not call them women, she would always call them things like bitches and cunts and sluts and all kinds of horrific words. She would go in depth how she would be so pissed off that the women who claimed to be she would she would say claimed, that's not me saying claimed, but she would say claimed to be Disney fans but didn't understand the princess mentality and didn't understand what came with being a princess. She would always give these speeches when she was in these rants about how women wanted to have the treatment of a princess but didn't want to do princess duties like cleaning and cooking and taking care of and supporting their men. Lily was on multiple dating apps, and at this time she admitted to being on a lot of these dating apps and how she was also joining all of these Facebook groups that were for Disney fans and how she would constantly have to make new Facebook profiles because she was getting kicked from these groups and she had a whole system. She went into depth one day about her whole system with making these burner accounts because of how she apparently would get kicked from a group and would then make a burner account an hour or so later, try to join them, and they would figure out that it was Lily and not accept her. So she talked about how she had a whole system and how she would like add all of these random I'm trying to find, I don't want this to come off as racist in any way. I promise that it is not to be hateful towards Indian people, but those scammer accounts that we've seen that come, there's so many shows and stuff about these too, and pages that talk about the Indian scammer accounts that work for those companies that get shut down over there in certain parts that get shut down for scamming places. She would purposely add a bunch of them to make it seem like she had a large friend list on the new groups. And that's how she would make the profile up. And she would always wait 2 to 3 days before joining, requesting to join the group. So she would get entered again. She was constantly getting kicked out of these groups for her hateful ideology because she strongly believed she was idolized and was obsessed with these Disney princesses, and she would have a habit of reaching out to. She said she would reach out to women in that group, which she often didn't say women. As I said before, she used some very hateful words. She would often say she reached out to bitches in that group and she would try to talk to them, and if she saw they were single, and she would get kicked for doing that. She admitted she also would make comments about how Star Wars, whenever that was bought out, even though it was part of Disney, how women should not be a part of that. And even though they owned it now, women should only be sticking to the more princess movies. She had very strong opinions on what movies she believed were appropriate based off of somebody's gender for them to be watching. She also very much resented the movie Milan. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. Some people tell me that I'm saying Mulan wrong or that it's Milan. I'm sorry. I don't in the movie they say Mulan, so that's what I call it, which I'm not big on that movie, which has nothing to do with the reasons Lily didn't like it. I just was never into the Disney princesses, so I apologize if I don't know all of the lore and background of those movies, but I have seen the first one I saw when I was a kid, and Lily brought up this movie frequently, would bring up how a lot of the trans community was a fan of this movie and how that was one of her most hated movies within the Disney franchise because it didn't portray, to put it in short and not use the word she used, it did not portray the ideology that she had with her obsession with Disney princesses, because the movie showed Mulan doing what she calls manly things. She would frequently call Mulan certain slurs, the ones that Ribbon helped me say earlier. I didn't say them, but the ones that Ribbon repeated for me because they're able to do that. She would go into these critiques too of the looks of princesses, and Mulan's was always her harshest. She would talk about Mulan not having big enough breasts and how the shaping, and she didn't look very feminine, and other than when she was in a particular scene, there's the scene in the movie where she gets a makeover. I can't remember if there, I think there was like a certain name for that, but there's the scene where she's getting all done up and she's getting a cricket under her outfit and all of that stuff. Lily would often say that was the only time that Mulan looked good. She would go into these rants too about how that would never happen in real life, that something like Mulan would never happen because the families would have forced her to be a real woman, as Lily referred to it, and forced her into that feminine look and to be with a man like she was supposed to be in the movie. Is her words, not mine, with the she's supposed to thing. She would talk about how she should have been married off and that's how it would have worked in real life, and how Disney was being very unrealistic by portraying her as going off and doing these masculine, manly things.
Hey, I just want to pause you for a second for a fun little fact for those of you who do not know, because Mulan is actually my favorite. It's kind of funny knowing now that Lily hates Mulan, because that is literally my favorite. I love Mulan. People think that Belle from Beauty and the Beast, because my Beauty and the Beast collection is my favorite, but it's actually just because it's super hard to collect Mulan things. If you know, you know. But I wanted to say, if you don't know, Mulan is based off of real women throughout history. There are multiple women throughout history who have done exactly what Mulan has done in the movie, where she pretends to be a man so that she can join the war. That was something that happened all around the world before women were allowed into the military and into service. There were so many women who throughout history are documented and proven to have done exactly that, pretend to be men so they can join. So I think it's really funny when I hear people who have that opinion where they're like, oh my gosh, little Mulan, she's so horrible and that would have never happened. It really did happen though. I also, real quick, I know this is random as hell, but I wanted to say I really love that you use the word like so much, because I use the word like so much and I get a lot of shit for it. And people are like, why do you use the word like all the time? So every time I hear somebody else who uses the word like, I immediately notice it and I'm like, yay, I'm not the only weirdo out there doing it. I'm not calling you weird. I'm just saying I'm not the only person that does it. It makes me happy to hear that. I know that's such a random thing to point out, but just wanted to thank you for also being somebody that overuses the word like, and I wanted to tell the viewers, listeners, whatever, if you're unaware, Mulan is actually based off of real women in history who did that. So this idea that, oh my gosh, there's no way that would have ever happened. Yeah, it actually did happen. A lot. There's so many throughout history documented. There's photos, there's stories. There's a lot of women who joined as men, did not know until much later, and they were considered heroes, and then they got, socially outcast, basically, whenever people found out they were women. It's even though they were worshiping them 5 minutes prior for their service. So now we have them in history and document them and talk about their great achievements. But for anybody who thinks that Mulan is a crock of crap because that would never happen according to them, it actually did, and she is based off of a real person. I'm gonna hand it back to John. I'm sorry to randomly interject like that. I just wanted to bring that up because so many freaking pieces of crap have that idea that this freaking delusional thing saying, oh yeah, she would have never happened. She was based off of real people though.
I actually had no idea that the movie was based off of those women. I don't want to give too much personal information, but I was told about women who did those things and were in wars pretending to be men before they could enlist, so I was aware those women existed, but I did not know that the movie was based off of that. I do want to say that I do not believe what Lily believes about how you can only like certain parts of the Disney fandom based off of your gender. I don't want the fact that I don't know a lot about the princess lore because I never got into it, and because I am a Mickey Mouse fan of the old stuff, that I don't want somebody to take that as me believing you can only like the masculine stuff if you're a man and only like the feminine stuff if you're a woman. I feel no matter what your gender, you can enjoy whatever part of Disney that you want. I did laugh a little when you said that you liked that I said like a lot. I didn't even know people got made fun of for that, because being an older millennial, and maybe this is because I'm older than you, I've seen more people use it, but I see people use like all the time. I hear it every day from people. I didn't know it was something people got made fun of for. But the first part of our friendship, that was all it was in the beginning, was just her constantly into these rants. No matter if we started a conversation regularly, that was how it always ended, with these insane, extreme, hateful rants about how she felt with women and the tactics she was using within the Disney fandom. But then came the Pearl incident. So Pearl had been around for a while, but I very vividly remember the day that Lily discovered Pearl. Lily had she contacted me that day because she had came across a interview of Pearl, and Lily almost immediately became obsessed. She admitted she had even made some posts about binging Pearl's things. She was sharing them so much, and in the comments and everything, of obsessed with Pearl, because Pearl was describing to her, in the way Lily described it, her dream woman.
Just gonna pause what he's saying for just a second. Sorry, John, I don't mean to interrupt again, but real quick for clarification for anybody who does not know who Pearl is, you can look her up. She goes by Just Girly Things. There are so many videos and interviews and podcasts with Pearl. Pearl is the queen of all pick-me's. She has a lot of incel ideation, but ironically, she still doesn't get picked because she is not of the traditional beauty standard, but she pushes a lot of these ideas that end up backfiring on her. You can see so many videos of her also just being humbled by people, by facts. But yeah, she is like a super incel supporter, basically. She is super misogynistic. She is super hateful towards women. She is a pick-me that she's the queen of pick-me's and still doesn't seem to get picked. But I just wanted to clarify that real quick. Sorry, John. I just wanted to clarify for anybody who did not know who she was. You can look her up.
Funny enough, that is what I was about to bring up. I wasn't. Thank you for clarifying who Pearl was, but what I was about to bring up is how Pearl being a pick me but not being picked. Lily was praising Pearl's ideation because Pearl had the same beliefs as Lily, but Lily would also critique Pearl in that same conversation, would critique about how Lily wished a attractive woman would have the same beliefs as Pearl. Lily would constantly make these same comments in the comment section when talking to other incels about how they were worshipping Pearl at this time, how they wished an attractive woman would have the same beliefs, and how it's always the ugly ones that actually get it, which I want to say I'm not calling Pearl ugly. That is what they were saying. I'll admit in that moment I made some comments myself about Pearl's appearance, but that was a very common theme when talking about Pearl. They would worship, all of them, Lily included, would worship Pearl's ideations and talk about how they wanted a woman to have the same beliefs as Pearl and how they were so excited to finally see people talking about Pearl, talking the way Pearl did and having the beliefs of Pearl, but how they didn't find Pearl attractive. There was so many times where they would nitpick every single thing. As I said, I made comments myself. I admit to that. I made comments talking about how she was not attractive to me, but they would take it next level. Lily Tino constantly was hypocritical in my perspective because Lily Tino has a similar build. Lily has this build that's very similar to Pearl's with the height and the muscles. So seeing how Lily acts now that she has came out and became Lily Tino, to be upset when she said all of these things about Pearl that is being said about her, it's just so hypocritical to me. They would pick apart every single part of Pearl's appearance while worshipping the things that she would say. And I don't want to say necessarily deserves, but I feel when I see people talking about Lily the way they are now, it's almost as if it was caused by her past actions catching up to her. I hope that comes across the way I'm hoping it'll come across. I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. I don't mean it to say that anyone deserves to be picked apart physically, their appearance, but it's almost this sense of irony that she is now being spoke about the way she spoke about other women.
I'm gonna step in and say it. I understand that you're trying to be respectful, but it's karma. It is karma. That is what that is. You are correct. It is her actions catching up to her. It is karma for her being so horrible for all that time. She's now being treated the way she was treating other people. There's no nice way to say it. And I agree that nobody should be picked apart for their appearance just to be an asshole, just to be that kind of person. But at the same time, there's also karma, and if you've been an asshole, you can't be surprised when people are assholes back to you.
I agree with you. I didn't want to come off so harsh, but yes, karma very much exists. What comes around goes around. I do believe what you put into the world will come back to you, bad or good. I admit being part of those communities, I had some bad stuff happen to me. I admit that that was my own fault for being so bad for so long. To sum up the rest of our friendship, it continued like that for a while, where it was just her constantly hating on women, the obsession with Disney princesses, her new obsession with Pearl continued for a while. I had some personal things where I was not online as much for a while. It's when I had started to realize that my ideas were bad and that I did not need to be a part of these dark, disturbing incel communities and hateful communities to find acceptance and love and to feel wanted. And I was starting to end my time in those communities and cut off those friendships. And Lily was escalating at that point where the hate was getting worse as I was withdrawing. Most of our conversations was just her rants and horrible, hateful things. I remember my last conversation with her before I completely left was so slur and hate word filled, where she was ranting about, and I will say she was not the person that finally pushed me over the edge, but she was definitely in that group of people that made me really open my eyes with how bad these people in these groups were. Because she was in this, our very last conversation, in this rant, she had ran into the trans woman that she had that past short lived relationship with, which I cannot confirm if she had intercourse with that person. Very much seemed like it. In my experience in the incel community, that kind of rage only comes from if things have happened. She was ranting to me how she had ran into them and they were with a man that was more attractive than her, and how she was so frustrated and so pissed off and so livid just at this woman's existence, because this woman's existence wasn't bad like Lily wanted, and how Lily wanted revenge, and she was just screaming and going into a rant. There were multiple people who had this interaction. It was not just me, it was a solid couple of days from everything I saw of her having this exact same rant with multiple people. Every single person she talked to, she was in the comments of some posts and ranting to about this woman. She was very active online. There was rumors, I don't know if this was confirmed, but there was even rumors that she had taken off time from work to have these interactions, because she was, I can confirm, she was online so much over the span of these 2 days, ranting over and over again, and so upset and so hateful that this woman was not having a bad life, that this woman seemed happy. She was just felt, she expressed that she felt betrayed, that life was not giving her the life she wanted and the woman she wanted, but this person she felt had done her wrong just for being trans was a, was a betrayal to her. That this woman was having a good life and Lily wasn't. I don't want to say how much longer after it was before I left the group, But I did ended up leaving that group for privacy. I don't want to say when. I left the group. Many people left that group around the same time. And it was not long after I saw her online. It was sent to me by a friend who was not aware. This was not another insult that sent it to me. This was a friend who just happened to have come across a Latino on their following page, and or I do apologize. I think it was their FYP. I'm not sure. I do not remember exactly where how they came across her. It was on TikTok though, and they sent me her videos and said, "Oh my gosh, look at how this woman is acting." That friend I am no longer friends with because they did also say some hateful things. They were not a part of the incel community, but they are against trans people, and they had made this rude remark. I was very dismissive of it. I was still healing at the time, and I didn't even really grasp how bad it was when I first saw, because I did see the preview. I saw that it was the person I'd formerly known as Nick that is now Lily, and was shocked. And I saw it and I just kind of ignored it at first. So I was aware that formerly known as Nick was now Lily and transitioning, but I still did not want to be a part of that. The first thing that came to my mind was, is this because of wanting revenge? And I kept telling myself maybe it was just self hate that made Lily act that way. But I kept thinking about it more and more, and I started rereading our conversations. And it was a couple months later when I was sent some of the extreme stuff that Lily was doing and realized, oh my gosh, this may be revenge. And the more Lily did, the more it seemed like that. And I felt I should come forward and try to say something. I did try to say something, started talking about it, and I was deeply attacked by Lily's fans. They started calling my employer, attacking me to the point I had to delete my accounts, putting my private information. I know there's a word for that, I can't think of it. Putting my private information out there. It's why I stayed silent so long, even with other people coming to me telling me they had similar experiences. But when I saw Lily's cousin was coming out and doing an interview, and I saw how much support Lily's cousin was getting for that, I felt safe. When I came across your page, I've talked about how I came across your page already. I'm sorry to repeat myself. And thank you again for giving me this opportunity and helping me with keeping it private so that this does not happen. A repeat of before does not happen again. But I still felt it was important to share my experience and story with how Lily acted prior to coming out as Lily and the hate that was there. In the previous actions, Lily is. I've seen so many clips of Lily saying people need to take accountability, but she's never taken accountability. Earlier, you said it was ironic that she doesn't take accountability, and I completely and wholeheartedly agree with that. Before I go, I want to thank you again for this opportunity. I know you said that you're hoping this will be a push for her to permanently leave the internet, and I really hope that it helps. I really hope that she does leave the internet permanently because of all of the super, the, the, the just, the horrific things. I don't even have, I don't really know how to describe what Lily has done at this point. I know I'm not caught up on all of it because of everything that happened with the Lily fans. I didn't want to be too involved with her. I did take a break from anything related to her for a while. And then when my friend came out and started expressing to me the damage Lily was doing, I started getting more involved, learning about it, and I've wanted to speak back out for a while, but I've just been too afraid to. I am hoping that the communities that she has damaged are able to repair the damage that Lily has done. And one more time, I just want to say if you are a part of those communities that I was a part of, and you've fallen down that very dark path and that very dark place, please seek help. Please reach out. Don't let that hate fester and consume you like it did me, that led me to being a part of those communities and being around people that said and did those things.
Thank you again, John, for coming on here and sharing your experience. I've talked already about how it's super important to share these experiences. Hopefully we can get her off the internet permanently. But I also want to say thank you for bringing up the incel stuff, because there are so many young men, and sometimes even older men, who have gone down that deep, dark path, as you called it, the dark path. And it's important for them to know that there is a way out, and there's other ways to combat loneliness and feel accepted and find a community that isn't hateful and just full of all of that. Had multiple incels, as I mentioned earlier. I did giggle a little bit with you talking about feeling bad for repeating stuff, because if you haven't noticed, I'm real bad about repeating stuff too. But multiple incels, former incels coming forward, and how important it is for them to come forward, and especially because incels typically only listen to other men because of the ideas that they have. So having them go and hear from another man who has experienced the same things as them, come forward and say, hey, this isn't the way, you can do better, you can change. It's super important for them to hear those things. I also want to say I think you did a fantastic job at summarizing a lot of those messages that you had. If you missed the context with the screenshots, John had sent me a bunch of them, of the, the stuff that he had experienced from that Nick account. And to be clear, once again, I'm not calling Lily Nick. This was the account from when she went by Nick. That's why I'm calling it that. But from this account that Lily previously had, there, as Nick said, she was like a broken record. She was so freaking repetitive. When you're reading through it, it is the same obsessions and hatefulness over and over and over again about the same people, just constantly. All this hate from women, and romanticizing Disney princesses and fictional women and all this bullshit. And seeing the Pearl stuff was really weird too. But I think you did a great job at summarizing that. I know the other reason why we weren't just reading off these screenshots was because of the slurs and you not being comfortable with the thing, which I think is good. I do think that is great that as a straight man, you don't want to say slurs that are used towards my community, which is why I stepped in and did say them, because it is important. I didn't want to keep repeating them, but it is important to show the impact of showing what she used, to show how much hate was in these messages. I'm going to pause the podcast for just 2 seconds, which you guys won't even notice, to end this call with him, and then I will come back and read off other story times that were sent to me from other Lily Tino fan victims. And I'm back, and you didn't even know it actually secretly took like 15 minutes. So I, similar to what he did, I'm going to sum up some of these things because, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, Lily. You and your fans seem to have a real fucking bad patterns of behavior. For example, 3 separate people who sent me in stories. To summarize what they said, they were all attacked for basically the exact same thing, which wasn't even bad. Also, just quick disclaimer, if you are listening because you think I'm going to read off stories of people being transphobic being attacked, that is not the case. I'm talking about regular people that were attacked just because Lily's a freaking bitch to people, and so are her fans. If someone was gone after because they were genuinely being transphobic, then I'm not reading that. I'm talking about people who were either falsely accused of being transphobic when they weren't doing anything transphobic, or were just attacked because Lily Tino fans are a bitch, and people were calling out her problematic behavior. So in three of these, 3 separate people on 3 separate occasions were attacked at the same time. By the way, earlier John was talking about private information being leaked, and I was talking to him and he said that he thought that it wasn't considered doxing because they didn't share his address. They just, workplace and things like that. That's still doxing, by the way. That's still considered doxing. And that's what happened to these people too. They had private information. People were going after people on their accounts and family and friends that were on their friends list and stuff. All because they all three did something similar in similar situations where they called Lily they. Now, they weren't saying he or trying to purposely misgender, but they were saying they when talking about Lily. And we're all attacked by Lily fans saying they were being transphobic by saying they, which is the biggest crock of fucking shit. Calling somebody they because you don't know, or you're a little confused about the scenario, or just saying they in a sentence because, for example, I'm calling these people they because there's multiple genders involved and I don't want to put their name out there, so I'm saying they. It's not transphobic. Now, if they had went out of their way to purposely like he, or that kind of shit, that's transphobic. But saying they because you're switching it up in the sentence, which is total normal English, or there's plenty of trans people too that go by she, they, or go by he, they, or go by they, them. Calling somebody they in a sentence doesn't make you transphobic. Are there ways it could be used as transphobia? Yes, but that's not what these people were doing. But on all three of these occasions, people from the Lily Tino fandom, which how the fuck does she have so many damn fans still, were coming after them and attacked them for it. They were falsely accused, being told that they were being transphobic by saying they because it proved that quote unquote, proved that they were purposely not saying she, even though that was not the case in any of these. I read the messages that got them in trouble and got them attacked, and none of them were like that. And I've had people, even myself, I have had people come after me for that on one of my Chris Chan videos, because Chris Chan goes by Christina, but also still goes by Chris Chan, and they use she, they. So I used they because there's so many names that Chris Chan has made for herself that I get very confused. So I just say they, but she goes by she, they. And it's also the easiest way to go about it because of their problematic actions. There's some stuff that Chris Chan has said where she's also at times said that she's not trans and stuff like that. So like she's done some stuff, so that's why I just say they a lot of times. But it has nothing to do with being transphobic. It's just it's actually the most respectful way to go about it majority of the time. If you don't know, or somebody's going back and forth, or somebody's, you don't, or you're just basic English and you're, instead of repeating yourself saying she 500 times, you say they and she. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not transphobia. Once again, there are ways people could weaponize it, but that's not what was happening here. I actually was submitted one very unique story, which this person has cleared with me sharing, because not all of them cleared with me sharing these. They just wanted to share their story, but not publicly. But one of them, who has given me permission to share this story, but asked that I just didn't use their name because hopefully it's been long enough, but they are preparing if they get backlash, if somebody figures out who they were. But there was a particular situation where somebody who had previously supported Lily when she first came out, she believed that she was really just getting shit, and then when Lily started doing more and more problematic stuff, realized, oh, never mind, this is, not the case. She's actually just a freaking horrible person. At one point, had asked Lily in a public situation, not public as in like in person, but public online, if there was a reason why she picked Lily instead of like Nicole or something, because her dead name was Nick, and asked her about this, and was accused of transphobia and was attacked by a bunch of Lily fans to the point where she had to private her account. And it started to make her realize how toxic people and stuff were within that fan space, even before Lily started doing super problematic things. But she was a Lily Tino supporter and was getting attacked for asking a simple question. Now, this was not a case where, people didn't know Lily's dead name. Lily had told people that her previous name was Nick. And it's a genuine question, because there are a lot of trans people who are connected to their original name and try to have a similar name, just of the opposite gender. It's a valid question. Lily was doing a Q&A at this time and asking, telling people to ask questions. And she was just asking an innocent question. Hey, is there a reason you picked Lily instead of something like Nicole or whatever, similar, like some people, trans people do, and was attacked for it. Was called transphobic for it, which is a prime example of the weaponization of calling people transphobic that aren't being transphobic that Lily Tino's fans and Lily Tino herself do. Another one that I was sent multiple story times of, including from other creators, which I'm going to let them share that if they want to. Some of them actually have already made videos talking about their experience with this, was of being falsely accused of transphobia when they spoke out about the bathroom situation, when they were not attacking her for using the bathroom, the women's bathroom. They were saying, hey, why are you going in and announcing it? Like, it's such a, like, you don't need to announce that in the bathroom. Like, for example, if you don't know, somehow I was born intersex, but I am on the side of the intersex spectrum where externally I have all female parts, but inside of me, near my ovaries, I actually have a set of testicles. Now, you can't see them unless you have a scan, which I've posted my scan before and stuff. But that's like me walking into the bathroom and being like, hey, everybody, I just want you to know that inside of me, beside my ovaries, you can't see this, don't know it, but there's technically balls. Like, that'd just be such a weird thing to fucking walk into the bathroom and announce, unless you were trying to rage bait people into misgendering or attacking you and you're trying to start some shit. And people were talking about that, and people were also talking about how, notice how any regular Disney influencer does not put kids and strangers in the bathroom in their photos. For example, I took some photos at Universal and I showed where that's one of the reasons, if you haven't seen the story of like how John found me, that's from that viral video of me showing, you can film stuff without fucking at parks without being a problem. But several people who had commented, why are you not blurring stuff out? Why, like, other people out? Why are you, because especially because there's people who adjust their outfits or, whatever the case may be. There's several reasons you shouldn't be fucking posting these pics, right? Blur other people out when you're in the freaking bathroom. I'm going to be honest, especially being in the army, where when we were in the field, the porta johns didn't always work. Sometimes you didn't even have porta johns. You just fucking dug a hole and shit, okay? I don't fucking care where you piss, okay? As long as you're not pissing in front of somebody, or you're pulling an R. Kelly and doing it to a minor and peeing on them or peeing on somebody inconsensual. If you're somebody who's into being peed on and you're doing that consensually with other adults, whatever, that's your business. But, like, I don't give a shit where you fucking piss. The problem is when you fucking walk into a bathroom and you're announcing shit and making a fucking scene and then taking pictures unconsensually of other people's children and doing these weird fucking things to rage bait and actively damaging while knowing how much damage you're doing to that community. Like, Lily Tino has this very pattern of anything that transphobes are bringing up that is problematic and scares people away from trans people and makes people think that all trans people are dangerous. Lily Tino then will go out and do that exact thing. It's why so many people believe that she's a government plant. But multiple people came forward with stories too about being attacked for bringing that up and being claimed that they were being transphobic by saying, hey, blur out the back of the photos. That has nothing to do with transphobia. Telling somebody, hey, don't post other people's kids in the background when you're taking a picture in the bathroom where, like, people expect privacy in the bathroom. That has nothing to do with transphobia. That is not being transphobic at all. And it's another case of weaponized, people weaponizing, claiming transphobia when it's not. What I do find so fucking ironic is one of the things that Lily was ranting about on that account, that when she was part of the incel communities that John was talking about, one of the messages, and I know he didn't cover this. I brought it. I was hoping he did, and I did ask him. He said it's fine to cover this, that he just forgot to mention it when he was summarizing stuff. But there's a point where Lily is talking about how she gets frustrated when black people bring up racism in times that it's not actually about race and try to fake claim racism and stuff. I think it's fucking ironic for her to be sitting there ranting about that in a fucking incel group and complaining about, a person of color talking about racism and how they, pull that card, or pulling the black card is what she was calling it. She was saying, when they pull up the racism card when it has nothing to do with race. But she does that so fucking much with the trans stuff. Like, how dear Lord, somebody print her off. I mean, I got a Cricut, but I ain't got the stuff to, like, make a sculpture. Print her off a fucking award for world's biggest fucking hypocrite. Because so much stuff in these freaking messages and so much stuff that John talked about are things that she just now does. But what is the term that people use? The different font thing. Yeah, like, they're doing it. She does it in a different font. It's the same shit, though. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. Before I end this, I do want to say, because I'm sure Lily will listen to this, because, I've already gotten threats from her fans telling me not to fucking make this and meh, shut the fuck up. You just don't want the freaking person you're worshiping to get exposed. I'm sure you, Lily, are going to come up with one of two responses to this. You're either going to try to say that, it was a long time ago and now you're just now quoting accountability and blah, 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 we should forgive you because it was you were lost and you didn't, blah, blah, fuck you. All this fucking excuses. Or you're going to try to say that it didn't happen. One of the two. But let me recommend a third option to you. Fucking leave the internet. Just leave the internet. You know what? I can't. I can't. There are problematic people out there who are still famous and stuff. You should never be one of them. I mean, they shouldn't be famous still either. And there's some people that, have made little mistakes and that you can forgive and stuff. But your actions, you need to hold yourself to the same standard that you hold other people with all this. We shouldn't forgive people and they're bad people for life because they did this and blah, blah, blah. And because somebody accidentally fucking misgendered you. This stab to the heart shit too. It is not a stab to the heart when somebody accidentally misgenders you because you don't pass. I don't fucking pass. And while, yes, I understand it can be a little hurtful when a stranger, does it, but it doesn't fucking bother me because it's not transphobic because I understand I don't fucking pass. You should still, if it's somebody in your personal life, that's a whole nother situation. If somebody in your personal life that knows misgenders you on purpose, that's disrespect. That's fucked up, right? That's hurtful. But if it's a fucking stranger that genuinely does not know when they do it on accident, you trying to get them fired and getting free meals and attacking them and outing them as you call them, that's not transphobia. That's a genuine accident. That is a mistake. It's like when a kid accidentally calls their teacher mom in first grade. You could properly educate people without making a fucking mockery and try to demand a free meal and all of that shit. Just be like, hey, by the way, it's ma'am. That's all you have to do. Not all this fucking showman. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's like a stab to the heart. It's a fucking stranger. And you're trying to take away their livelihood and get them fired because they fucking made a mistake. Like I said, it's a whole different thing if somebody personally that knows you is doing it on purpose. But it's not transphobic if somebody makes a mistake. It's not. And another thing you need to take responsibility for is your followers, because you can pretend like you're not sending your followers out there after people, but we all know it's true. And even if you're not directly telling somebody, even in the times where you're not directly telling somebody to go after, your actions and the way that you tell people to act and the way that you act is what causes these followers to go out and do this shit. I understand that you cannot control every single follower out there, but when you are portraying a certain behavior as okay and certain actions as okay and telling people, oh, you're just so heartbroken and it hurts so much and this person's doing so much damage to me, you know that people that follow you are going to want to protect you and go after people and do these things. So you are just as responsible. I cannot tell you, I have not sat there and counted how many times I have had people send me messages with fucking proof, with screenshots showing where a Lily Tino fan has told them to take their own life because of fucking making, saying something they didn't like or calling you out on your bad behavior. Leave the fucking internet. If you truly care about the trans community like you fucking tell everybody on the internet that you do, then you will leave the community online. You will leave online. I'm not, to be clear, because I know there's fucking somebody who's going to fucking edit it and be like, oh, you're saying leave the community as in telling her not to transition. That's not what I'm saying. If you care about the trans community, you will leave the online community because you are doing active damage. And the fact that you try to pretend that you are not doing active damage to rage bait for money, honestly, supporting Lily Tino is fucking the real transphobia because you're supporting somebody who's doing severe damage to the trans community. I also want to say, for all of the people who will sit there and they'll say things like, oh, I don't support Lily Tino and she's a bad person, but we need to stop talking about her because it's promoting transphobia. That's a fucking lie and you know it, because every single fucking person I see that makes those videos saying we shouldn't talk about it because it's supporting transphobes, even though we're, not transphobic, it's still supporting transphobes by calling out Lily Tino's bad behavior. That's a lie and you want to know it. And you want to know how I know that you know that's a fucking lie? Because you also will always, every single person that does this has shit up about Free Palestine and how silence is compliance and how we need to make sure that we're holding people accountable and how we shouldn't follow problematic creators. There was a whole follow train of how everybody was protesting, and how you shouldn't shop at places like Target, and how you shouldn't shop and support these communities that won't say anything, or that they support bad people and bad things. There's a whole trend, and I know some people are a little bit confused by the Palestine thing. With the Free Palestine stuff, there is a very strong thing about silence is compliance, and not speaking out and using your platform to speak about bad things makes you just as bad as the people who are supporting it. Which means if you can stand there and say that, then you understand how important it is to speak out against Lily Tino. It's the exact same concept of silence is compliance. As a community, we need to be cleaning up our own fucking community and making it very clear that we do not stand with what Lily Tino is doing, and it has nothing to do with transphobia, and we're not supporting transphobia, but we do not support what Lily Tino is doing. You are outing yourself as a hypocrite when you support all of the rest of the stuff and proving that you understand the importance of speaking out, but then you don't want us to speak out against Lily Tino. And trying to manipulate the situation by saying, oh, it's because, speaking out against Lily Tino is going to support transphobia. No, it doesn't. Yes, there are people that, are transphobic about it, but speaking out against her bad actions is not transphobic. Speaking out against her staying silent about her bad situations, staying silent about the bad things Lily Tino did, and being a part of that same community that she is damaging is the real transphobia, because you are allowing it, and that is constantly used too. There's so many politicians stuff and so many people who are transphobic that will use Lily Tino and be like, yeah, the community's allowing it. Look, they're allowing it, which means they agree with it. That means, yeah, that is proof that it is super important for us to talk about this. As I completely agree that the thing that silence is compliance is fucking true. It condones the behavior. It's just like when you have a friend who is doing shitty things, like let's say you have a friend that's cheating and you're not necessarily helping them cheat on their partner, but you choose not to say anything and be like, hey buddy, that's bad. They feel condoned to keep doing it because they're like, well, nobody around me saying anything, so I guess they support it. Yeah, that's literally how Lily Tino feels when she sees people being like, oh, don't talk about her, or, I'm not going to speak up against it. Yeah, you're part of the problem. You are indirectly supporting her by not speaking about how bad it is, or by telling people not to speak about it. Those same people will make these videos when they're telling people not to fucking speak out about it because, it's going to support transphobia, and be like, yeah, I don't support what she's doing, but I don't support transphobia. You want to prove that her behavior is bad and it's not about being trans, then fucking speak up. And stop telling those of us who are outing this shit that we need to be silent because it's going to promote the transphobes. Like, no. Speaking out and being like, hey, this has nothing to do with fucking her being trans. It has to do with her being a fucking bad person. And making that very clear to the public is super fucking important. The fact that Lily Tino is on a hiatus because of her cousin speaking out and more people speaking out is proof that speaking up and more people finally speaking up about her is getting her off the internet, and it is working and it is helping. So if you sit here and shame people and try to manipulate by saying, oh, it's promoting transphobes, all you're doing is encouraging her to come back, encouraging her not to leave. You are being part of the problem. Well, I am going to end this here. I again want to say thank you to John for coming on here. Also, thank you for reminding me I'm not the only person that says like, for all of you who make fun of me for saying like a bunch. Thank you again to that lawyer's office that helped me do that disclaimer. Quick reminder that this was for educational and entertainment purposes and is all alleged. It is just a matter of opinion. And if anyone else wants to come on, just let me know. I do have some people that want to come on for the regular gaming content, and plob content, so we're going to be having them first for the next couple of episodes. But if there is somebody else who wants a platform and wants to come on here and speak about their personal experience with Lily Tino, if they had a personal experience, just let me know. Remember, I will not be sharing actual transphobia, though. Like, if you're just hating on her because she's trans, that's a whole different thing. Everybody remember to hydrate, wear sunscreen, be careful in the heats. If you wear binders or sports bras, remember don't do that in extreme heat because it's unsafe. And as always, I am a Kindle with interchangeable accessories for their pleasure.